There was a movie that came out relatively recently in limited distribution about Dietrich Bonhoeffer. And if you've not seen the movie and have no idea about whom I'm speaking, that's okay. Your understanding of my homily does not hinge upon that. Dietrich Bonhoeffer was actually a Protestant preacher and theologian from the early to mid 1900s. He found himself very quickly under Nazi occupation and preached with great fervor against the evils of the ideology. Ultimately wound up giving his life for that. And I find that when I read his material, when I read his sermons and his books, that to me it's a lot like spiritual health food. That I know it's good for me, but I really wish it tasted better than it did. That it is always challenging. That the man did not mince words. And sometimes he likes to take our sacred cows and throw them to the ground. A handful of years ago, I was reading one of his works in which he cautioned us about the danger of clinging too tightly to our hopes, our dreams, and our ambitions, which seems like such an odd thing, especially for us as Americans. I mean, we talk about the American dream. We extol hard work and ambition. But he said there's a subtle danger in it that if we're not careful, it becomes a form of idolatry. That he says, I can have great dreams as a pastor for my church community. He said, I can have great hopes for who I think all of the people out there ought to be. But then at a certain point, I wind up coming face to face with who those people actually are. And that doesn't often line up with this grand vision I have in my head of who they should be. And I can either despair and get angry and think that my vision has failed, or I can get angry at them. As the associate here, I can get angry at you because you are not exactly the person that I think that you ought to be. And in so doing, ultimately, I'm getting angry at God. And I'm telling the good Lord, Lord, I have a plan that I think would go much more smoothly than yours. And if you would just listen to me, I think this whole human race thing would work out so much better. That little by little, in my love for the idea I have of you, I begin to love you less as an actual living, breathing human being, and I begin to get angrier and angrier at him. That if I'm unwilling to take that hope that I have, which in and of itself is good, but let go of it when I have to, when it does not accord with reality and there is no way that that hope can come to fruition, then I'm clinging to a word that is not God's, it's mine. And that's idolatry. And the danger is the more authority we've been given, the more talent we've been given, and in fact, the more love we've been given, the more dangerous this becomes. That this is a temptation for us when we're teachers in a classroom. I can see a student in my classroom with a bunch of potential. This student can absolutely flourish, but they don't. And I can allow that to cause me to get irritated with them, or to get irritated with me in the way I teach, or to get irritated with God. When maybe there are a number of circumstances in said individual's life at play that I simply can't see and I can't teach to as much as I might want to. And I remember experiencing this in one of my parish assignments where it felt like It was like one of those moments in your life when all of the planets align and everything was just so. And I remember actually offering a prayer to God and saying, like, Lord, thank you. This is awesome. Like, I have the exact right faculty at this school. I have the exact right mentors that I feel like I need to grow as a priest. Like, I have the right support system in place. I've got a great parish. My parishioners are fantastic and supportive. And then like a week later, it was all gone. That all of a sudden, due to a variety of circumstances, all of a sudden one of those priest mentors wasn't there, and the school board wasn't working as well as it should have, and work wound up leading to some of the strong parish families having to move. And all of a sudden, this beautiful situation that I thought was exactly right for the flourishing of this parish and the spiritual lives of the people there, it was gone. It was a sandcastle that got washed away with the next wave. And I remember being really upset at the Lord for a little while. And I remember bringing that to him and being like, Lord, I don't get it. Like, maybe you don't see what I see. But like, things were working here. Souls were going to be saved here, Lord. Like, do you not care? It's a funny question to ask the God who is love. And I finally had to catch myself as God allowed me to throw my little temper tantrum for a short while. And pick me up, dust me off, and said, yeah, sometimes that's the way things go. And I can't explain it to you, or maybe he wouldn't explain it to me. It amounts to the same thing. But he said, you have a choice. You can cling to that vision that's no longer here, or you can accept what's actually reality and love the people who are in front of your face and love the person that you are and love the people that you're working with. Said, you can get angry and bitter because those people and those circumstances don't exist anymore, or you can love here. That's your choice. And with a little bit of grumbling, I had to love the people who were there in front of my face in the circumstances in which they found themselves and in the circumstances in which I found myself. It's one of the things I find fascinating as we celebrate the Feast of the Holy Family today, that there must have been so many happy stories from our Lord Jesus' childhood. I have to think, with two deeply holy, saintly parents, one actually perfect and one almost there, and a child who is literally God, like, I have to think they got along swimmingly most of the time. We're not shown a single one of those stories in the Gospels, not one of them. St. Luke does not recount one of those occurrences. We don't ever get to hear about the time that St. Joseph cooked a fantastic meal and Mary and Jesus complimented it on him and they had a lovely conversation and all went to bed happy. Like, that doesn't show up in the Gospels. What does is the time they had to flee for their lives to Egypt and the time that Joseph was going to divorce Mary quietly and an angel appeared to him in a dream and said, look, dude, I can't explain this all to you now, but don't do that. Marry her and take care of the kid. Okay, all right, boss. And then today we get the story of them going, as was their tradition, to worship in the temple. And the child Jesus, in spite of the fact that he was 12, he was obedient and he was intelligent and he knew what he was doing. The child Jesus sticks around at the temple, even though mom and dad are going home. And it takes them 3 days to figure this out. And I can only imagine how much sheer terror they went through over the course of those 3 days. That as holy as they were and as trusting in God as they were, they have just lost the Messiah. It's bad enough that they just lost their child. They have lost the Savior of the human race. And they finally find Jesus, and God bless them. I don't know if my words would have been this restrained, "But son, why have you done this to us? Your father and I have been looking for you with great anxiety." And he said to them, "Why were you looking for me? Did you not know that I must be in my Father's house?" But they did not understand what he said to them. Jesus gives them a non-answer. He is actually a perfectly obedient child. Jesus never sinned in his whole childhood. I don't know what that's like. Like, he was the one 12-year-old that we've ever met who actually was always obedient to his parents. And he still didn't give them a satisfactory answer. Jesus said, "What do you want from me? This is where I'm supposed to be." And his parents didn't understand, but we're told Mary took it and she pondered it in her heart. And eventually Mary figured out that her son was preparing her for the time when the plan that she had, no matter how holy she was, inevitably she had plans because she's a human being. That he was preparing her for the time when her plan would not look like his plan. And when it was going to tear her heart in half to have to allow his plan to be fulfilled. That Jesus was saying, there's going to come a point, Mom, when you're not going to fully understand, but I need you to trust me. And I need you to let go of the perfect plan that you have and accept the real plan that I have. Which maybe is more perfect than you think it is. And so even our sinless mother had to be taught that same lesson. Because that's a lesson we all have to learn as we grow in obedience and humility. That over the course of our lives, no matter who we are, we're provided with opportunities where we have to admit in humility that maybe God knows something we don't. Even in his permissive will, even in the stuff that God doesn't do, but he allows to happen. That either I get angry and bitter, or I trust that there is somebody that needs to be loved in the situation that actually exists. And so as we celebrate the feast of the Holy Family today, we rejoice not just in the remarkable story that they are for us, and not just in the great example that they are for us, but we rejoice in the reminder they are and in the intercessors that they are. That even Mary and Joseph were allowed by Jesus to have their plans flipped on their heads. Because that was a place where they learned to trust in him more and to love better. And to love on God's terms and not on their own terms. To love according to God's hopes and dreams and not just according to ours. May we take that to heart in our own lives. And love the people in our community and not just the image we have of the people in our community. And love the people in our family and not just the image that we have of the people in our family. And love the vocations to which God has called us and not just the image that we might have in the moment of the vocation to which God has called us. And may Mary and Joseph intercede for us to their son, that we might grow through those experiences and not become bitter in them, so that we might come to know him as he truly is, as Mary and Joseph did in their family.